Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. We're talking writing, editing, crafting, the world of magazine editing and journal editing, and delighted on this episode to be talking with author, editor, creator Kristi Petersen Schoonover. Kristi, thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. I'll mention some titles here. We have The Shadows Behind.
Yeah.
We have Skeletons in the Swimming Hole.
Yes, that was my
Love that
first
title.
foray. Thank you.
Yeah. And then you've also been featured in that's just a couple of fuller, like full-length works, but you've also been featured in work like Ink Stains and, of course, the journal 34 Orchard, which you are an editor for.
Yes. Yep. I am
Uh,
founding editor of 34 Orchard, and usually the only part of that journal that I write in is the introduction, where because I look at each issue as a fluid piece of art. And
oh,
so I like to have an introduction just to sort of set the reader's expectations and try to look for the thematic threads that are going to appear in that issue. So,
love
but
it,
yeah.
love it. What led you on this path of authoring and editing and the written word?
Well, it started when I was very young. My dad was an English teacher at a local high
Hmm.
school, and he was a very creative teacher. He taught this was back in the 60s and 70s when classes were for for our listeners out there who may not know, or our viewers, but you might know, classes used to be tracked, right? So they
Hmm.
would test you and they would put you in levels 1 through 5, and like one was like the highest level, and like 5 was like the people that needed the most assistance. And
Hmm.
my dad had the ones, he had a bunch of ones, but the classes, but then he had um I don't know what level they were, but it was during the time of Welcome Back Cotter, so he used to call them, I get the Welcome Back Cotter kids. And and
Uh,
he loved them. He said they were his favorite people to teach. He said, but they needed to kind of look at English differently, look at language differently, look at short stories differently. So he would do all kinds of things, like we're going to act out Romeo and Juliet, and we're going to do, so he did very hands on. So that is where I came from, and probably how I got started, because both of my parents also did theater in the high school. My mother
uh,
was a music teacher. So there was a lot of drama, there was a lot of reading, there was a lot of, when I was little, like storytelling was not necessarily let me read you a story. It was we're going to act out the story. So I fell in love with books and reading, and I was really advanced for my age as a reader. And the only reason I know that is because my dad told me that, and I was reading way above my level. I like at 12 years old, he told me, go down to the den and you can read whatever you like out of there. Just don't tell your mother. And if you have questions, please come to me. Because there were, he liked a lot of 70s thrillers, Irving
yeah.
Wallace's The Word, right?
Hmm.
Jaws. Okay. He had all the Peter Benchley stuff, Ghost Boat. He had everything, honestly, but horror. He was really into, he had everything but horror. But I was reading things like Tales of the South Pacific by James Michener,
Oh, yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
there would be all these types of things in there, like, sex and drugs and divorce, which was in the 70s kind of a taboo topic. You didn't talk about that back then.
Hmm.
I know a lot of today's viewers are like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, there was a time when divorce was like, no, it was very bad topic. You didn't talk about it. So that's how I kind of got into, I guess, it. And then writing just came naturally. So, yeah. I ate books for breakfast. Like I would read. I remember one birthday, he got me 10 Nancy Drew books of the hardcovers, and I was
Uh-huh.
done with them in like 7 days. And he was like, what?
Wow.
Like, and that's when he sent me down to his thing. He said, okay, and I'm not going to keep, this is costing us a fortune. Go
Oh, yeah.
downstairs and do that. Yeah. So, and I mean, I had the school libraries and stuff, but And back then, there really wasn't a whole lot of children's literature either. So if you, I mean, not like there is now, we have such a wonderful proliferation of children's literature. But back then, you didn't
Mm.
have that. So, there was no real YA. I mean, there were some things like, right, A Wrinkle in Time and Madeline L'Engle,
Hmm.
and Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret, all the
Oh
Judy
yes.
Blume stuff. And so there was a lot of stuff, all the C.S. Lewis stuff, and there was plenty of stuff for youth, but it was not like today, where it was everywhere. And if you had ripped through all of those series that I previously mentioned, sometimes there was nowhere to go but up.
Yeah,
Because
truly.
yeah. So yeah, so I'm really lucky and I owe it all to my dad, really. And the fact that he was teaching me to read like super, super young,
That's
really young.
cool. That is
I think
cool.
probably before a normal kid would be taught to read, probably, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So
When did horror enter the picture?
funny story, horror did not come into my life. Stephen King came into my life when I was around 15 or 16 years old. And we
Uh-huh.
used to go to West Haven to my Italian family's house every Sunday, and it was extremely boring. But my cousin was into Stephen King, and she had all his books because she was in the book club.
Oh yeah.
So I would go in there and read when I was there because my parents were not supportive of horror, and I completely understand why. Because I was an imaginative child. Later, I
Hmm.
would figure out as an adult that that house actually was haunted, and things that
Oh
went on
wow.
in the house were like, it's in your head. There's no such thing as ghosts. And don't, honestly, I am so grateful that they policed me. I grew up in a born again Christian home. So
Hmm.
things like The Exorcist were treated as that's real.
Hmm.
To this
Hmm.
day, I don't watch that stuff. It's too much for me. That is the demon possession stuff, or I can't handle it. It's too
Yeah.
scary because it was ingrained in me that is real, and whether it's real to others or not real, whatever, that's not what I'm questioning. It's very real to me, and it terrifies me, so I don't watch it, like, because I'm like, I don't
Hmm.
want to see
Hmm.
that. The ghosts scare me. Things still scare me. Imagery scares me. I'm getting much more desensitized. But so when I moved into this house with my housemate in 1997, um I moved in and I still had not seen much in the way of horror at all. I had just read some Stephen King books and read all the short stories. I loved his short stories. Like in college, oh my God, I loved his work. I read all of it. And I read a lot of Michael Crichton. I was really into Michael Crichton. Um,
Same, same.
yeah, oh my gosh, the Andromeda Strain. And
Hmm.
I love
Hmm.
the film of the Andromeda Strain because when it opens, it says February 5th, 1971, and that is my actual birthday.
Oh, nice.
So
Nice.
dad would show that to me, like when it was on TV, he'd be like, look, it's your birthday, because back then they didn't, when it came on, you watched it because you didn't have it on
Hmm.
video or whatever. Um, so yeah, when I moved in here, my housemate, Charles, um, he said, oh, come on in, move in or whatever, because I was getting divorced. I had nowhere to go. And I went into the bathroom for the first time, his guest bathroom, to use it.
Hmm.
And he had the original lobby cards from The Exorcist framed and all over the walls. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, dude, if I move in here, these have to not be here. And he's like, no,
Yeah.
you don't understand. Those are originals. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I cannot see that. Like, I can't sleep here tonight now because I looked at that. I need, and he was like, okay. So he did take it all down. It is
Oh,
packed away. No, it is packed away. It's in mint condition. So, he's like, you probably
nice.
did me a favor because all the stuff is in mint condition and it's safely packed away. But
Hmm.
and that's when horror started coming into my life because I started actually, he was introducing me to horror movies, great old things I hadn't seen, things in the 80s I wasn't allowed to see. And then a lot of the stories I was writing at the time was like speculative fiction, or like more like magic realism, things with magical elements, stuff like that. And I guess some of my stuff was kind of dark. And
Yeah.
I just started to realize that, oh, maybe I'm going in a horror direction. And in 2010, I joined the New England Horror Writers. And that's how I kind of
Nice.
became aligned with horror writing, although most of the feedback I hear about my work is not necessarily scary. What I usually hear is it's really sad with some
Yeah.
scary images.
Hmm.
But I mean, I don't kind of fit anywhere. So I'm, I mean, I do all kinds of different writing. So just like I do all kinds of different reading. I read a whole lot of
Yeah.
different books. And I don't read as much horror as I'd like. Um, just because there's a certain something has I'm a really particular reader, and if it doesn't
Hmm.
grab me by the throat, then I let it go. Um, and I have my dad to thank for that too, because he always said, don't feel guilty about that. There's millions and millions of books. And it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that that book or that story was bad or that it was terrible or anything like that. What it means is you didn't connect with it. And so do
True.
not feel, if you do not connect with something, walk away because
Hmm.
somebody else will love that book. You don't need to love that book. Like, that's fine. Go find something you love because life is short. You can't read like he used to tell his students,
True.
he would always give them choices. He's like, here's three books. You need to pick one of them. He said, I'm not going to force some kid to read something he hates. That's just going to make him hate reading. And I would say,
Hmm.
don't, it's fine. Don't finish it. I don't care. My dad was also a huge fan of Cliff Notes. He's like, if you don't understand it, he was an English teacher. He's like, if you don't understand it, get the Cliff Notes.
Which
Don't put
still
it
involves
down.
reading.
Yep. Read the Cliff Notes,
Hmm.
understand it. I struggled with Shakespeare. My dad loved Shakespeare. I struggled with it. He said, it's okay, honey, get the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
And he taught it. So he'd be like, what's going on in this scene with Macbeth? Are you confused? Sit down. Let me explain it to you.
Mm.
I will never have a love for Shakespeare, but thanks to my dad and the Cliff Notes, I have an understanding of his work and how important it is and the basic stories and what they
Wow.
mean. And I can go to a play and enjoy a play because I can kind of see what's going on and I can, enjoy the modern updated versions where I can understand it. I'm not ashamed to
Hmm.
admit I don't understand Shakespeare. It's fine. Not everybody has to love Shakespeare. It's okay. Like,
True.
it's okay if you don't love Shakespeare. Um, but yeah, so that's how I ended up in horror. And I think horror is important because in horror you can talk about anything. You
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
invent anything and talk about it. Your deepest traumas, your fears, something that happened to you at the grocery store that's too embarrassing for you to talk about. You can put that in a horror story and somebody will relate to it out there. In general,
Absolutely.
fiction is a way that we can share our experiences. That's what 34 Orchards about.
Mm.
I love when I get email. We have a really vocal readership at 34 Orchard. And I actually get emails from people that will be like, I read this story and I really loved it, or I read this poem and this reminded me of when I struggled because my mom died. And I just wanted to thank you for publishing that and thank the writer. Can you let the writer know that she made me
Mm.
feel better today? And that's what it's about. It's about connection. And I think as writers, there's so much pressure nowadays. There really is. Um, because the internet and there are so many wonderful avenues to get our work out there and everybody can write and everybody can publish and everybody has access, but the
Hmm.
problem with that too is that it's a glut and it's overwhelming and it's like, how do you be heard in this
Right.
noise? And from that comes, I think, an innate sense of I went to I studied under Marita Golden up at the Norman Mailer Writers Colony uh,
Mm.
back when they were still up in P Town. And Marita Golden had this wonderful conference recently that I attended that was talking about keeping the focus on the quiet of your writing in the chair when there is so much potential to envy others and their success.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
And she was
Yeah.
talking about this very thing where, because we have access to everybody's work, and because it can create, issues where you're writing to sell a story, you're
Hmm.
writing to get an audience, you're blogging to do this, you're participating in this to get that, instead of sometimes just saying, hey, I'm just going to write this story just because I want to talk about something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hence there's a lot of pressure. And so I
Hmm.
think it's important for us all as writers to sometimes just remember that it's not about how many books you sell. It is not about how many stories you place. It is not about that in the end. It's about what my dad used to say, which is, if you reach one person, if you change that person's life, then you did your job,
Hmm.
and you may
Hmm.
never hear about it. There are stories that he read to me when I was a real little girl that I will never forget. Stories that changed my life. Leningen versus the Ants changed my life forever, by Carl Stevenson. And the reason it
Hmm.
changed my life is because my dad sat down and said, look at all the Christ imagery in here. And I went, what do you
Yeah.
mean? And he said, well, what he's talking about, this story is a language, and he's comparing a lot of these things to Christ-like figures, because what the story is really about is colonialism, and that's a whole topic for another podcast. I'm not even going to go into that, but it's this whole thing about colonialism and how the Dutch guy was comparing himself to Christ. And in this story, you can see here, there's the number 12, there's this is representative of Peter, this is one of the apostles over here. Like, my dad was going crazy with this story,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow. I mean, that story changed my life. I was like, wow, that's what got me on this path. Because I suddenly realized short stories are just a language, right? Like novels are a language. Everything talks about something else.
There's so
And
much you can do.
there's so much you can do and so many people you can reach. And
Yeah.
and that's why I started 34 Orchard, because I wanted the opportunity to, I don't know, just publish really visceral stuff that I thought would reach people. And
Hmm.
also, I saw a niche that was open that kind of wasn't really being addressed. Like, we do a lot with trauma lit, and
Hmm.
trauma lit is a tough sell because, first of all, it's not really a genre, it's a layer over another genre.
Hmm.
But it's very intense, and a lot of people do not want to read that. When they read, they
Right.
want to, they want to be entertained, and they, you know um but that said, trauma lit also tends to be a place where we can really feel that depth of our own humanity. One of the
Hmm.
best examples of heartbreak is, that I read like literally just a couple of days ago, is City of Laughter, in the book How High We Go in the Dark.
Hmm.
Where because people are always like, can you give me an example of trauma lit? And I'm like, that's trauma lit. And they're like, if they've
Hmm.
read that story, they go, oh my God. I'm like, yes, exactly. It's ripping your heart out. It's saying stuff that people maybe don't want to read, that because it's painful. It's
Yeah.
kind of like dark literature with an oomph, is the way I put it. It's
Hmm.
like a horror story that just goes that extra oomph. It's got that extra emotional layer to it. Um, that really like can affect people and reach out, you know. Um,
I love how your creative work also informs your editing life as well, and how it sounds like so much of your experience has kind of shaped you that way to work with creative people.
thank you. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, trauma is just natural to me. Um, my mom had cancer for 8 years. She literally died in my lap on the bathroom floor when I was 15. And there were three kids after me. Um, so yes, I have PTSD, I have trauma issues. I have been working on these with shadow work and other things so that I can, move forward. And it was a long, long time ago. But let me tell you, when you spend 40 years pushing it down, eventually one day it's going to come up and rear its ugly head. And so you better get
Yes.
to work. Yeah.
True.
So
True, true.
that said, I am so grateful that I was able to take that trauma and use it to inform 34 Orchard and inform my work and be able
Mhm.
to reach people who suffer. There's this one story that people still write to me about in issue 2, and it was called All Parts Are Sacred, or All Things Are, oh my gosh, I can't remember the title. I'm so embarrassed. It was by Hunter Lagore, who is a wonderful speculative fiction writer. So anybody out there, look her up. She's fantastic. She has short stories everywhere. She's just great. Um,
This is the brilliant thing about pre-recorded is we can look it up right now.
yeah, look it up. It's called Every Part is Sacred, I think it's called.
Hunter
Lagore. I
Lagore.
think that's how you pronounced her name. It's Liguore. Every piece is sacred. Oh my God, every piece is sacred. That's what it's called. Every piece is sacred.
There it is. There it is.
It is
Yeah.
a genius. It is genius. That thing came into my inbox and I literally jumped up and down screaming the second I finished it. I was like, holy, oh my God. I was like,
Hmm.
it is heart wrenching. It is about, we are never told where we are. So we don't know if we're in a speculative world or if that is like the desert, you know, or if
Hmm.
we are in a desert country in modern day. We really don't know. There's no indication there. Um,
It's cool.
but it's about these women who are married to each other, which is taboo in this place.
Hmm.
And so they are secretly married, and is they, or their job or their calling is they pick up the pieces of children that have been blown to bits by bombs and return them
Wow.
to the families. And people still
Which
write to
is,
me and go, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever read." I mean, it's beautiful. It's not
yeah.
gory. It's not, it's not gross. It is provocative. It is disturbing.
Hmm.
But she said to me when I bought, she's like, "You really want this? Nobody wants this." I said, "Well, I want it." I said, "This is genius. Their loss. This is
Yeah.
genius. This is
Yeah.
genius." And
And there's
and
so many
people who
connections.
and people who have lost a child are gonna,
Yeah.
respond. And the whole point is, like, some people, it's like the whole trigger warning thing sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, Triggers warnings are difficult because some people, trigger warnings are trigger warnings, and other people, it's not a trigger. It's a reason to connect or a reason to explore. I
Yeah.
don't shy away from things about cancer or dead mothers. In fact, dead mothers are like my favorite things to watch or to read because I feel so not alone. When
Hmm.
I go, "Oh my gosh, look, when I was,
Hmm.
when that was happening to me, I felt like I was alone. That nobody, I was 15. Nobody else in the world was going through what I was going through. You're 15.
Yeah.
For years, I just thought I was alone. You know, I went to school with a smile on my face. I got straight A's. I didn't talk about it in school. I didn't want anybody to know about it. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
my mom's dying. That's at home. That's over there. We're not going to talk about that. When I'm in school, please treat me like a normal person. I don't want to be
Hmm.
pulled out of school to go home and give her morphine. I don't, just leave me alone. Like, let me have school. Um, and so anything like that, any book like that, I want to read about it because I want to connect with that and I want to see what other people have struggled with. Whether you lost your mom when you were older, whether you lost her when you were young, whether she's still alive and you're afraid of losing her. I mean, this is a language, this is a very human, raw connect language, and it's the opportunity for connection.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if you're triggered by it, that's okay too, but that's what, there's no rules here. Like, no, nobody's telling you you can't be triggered, right? I'm triggered by
Right.
demon possession, and that's not even real to a lot of people. So there you go. Um,
Right.
but I think it makes us think about things and it makes us explore things, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
like that movie Mama from Guillermo del Toro. I mean, everybody
Oh yeah.
said that. Yeah, I was crying through that whole thing. I understood that. I was like, oh my God, the dead mother coming back to haunt the whole. Oh my God, I so get that. I so get that, you know,
Yeah.
and the ending was a little too, I love Guillermo del Toro, but sometimes his endings
Same.
on a couple of his movies are just so happy. I'm like, dude, what did you do? Like we
Right.
were going a great way. And it's not that they have to be sad or be tied up in a bow, but do we need
Hmm.
to do the happy ending? Like Mama had kind of like a happy ending and like the orphanage had like a happy ending. And it's like, okay, we can maybe not, I think some of his later work he kind of did differently, but or
Yeah.
other work,
True.
he didn't always do the same, but yeah, I really responded to that. Um so yeah, I mean, that's that. And I think trauma lit especially can help a reader feel seen,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then there are people, we ran one about a school shooting too, that was a
Yeah.
piece of fiction. And oh my God, I mean, again, it
Complicated
was,
emotions. Yeah.
oh, and this writer nailed, I mean, nailed it. And unfortunately, I knew he had nailed it. I don't to this day know if he ever had this experience himself or if he knew someone who did. It is quite possible. But
Hmm.
I am in Danbury, Connecticut. I am right next door to the Sandy Hook shootings.
Yeah.
So I had people who went through it.
Hmm.
Even though I did not go through it myself, I recognized what I was reading. I recognized the pain.
Hmm.
And I did get letters after that one too, saying that it was extraordinary and it just made you feel that hopelessness and puts you in those people's shoes. Because I think in this world too, right now, empathy is really hard because everybody is struggling to survive. And I always hear these commentaries like, what's happening to people? Nobody has empathy. Okay, that's because everybody's traumatized and they're trying to survive. And when you're traumatized and you're trying to survive, it's really hard to be empathetic because all you're
Hmm.
thinking about is, oh my God, I need to freaking survive this.
Fight
Like,
or
I get
flight.
it. We went into the
Hmm.
pandemic and people are like, oh my gosh, there's all this horrible stuff going on. Yes, because we went in the pandemic and then you just said, okay, it's over now. And you took all these traumatized people, everybody, and just threw them back into regular life.
Hmm.
And
It's
okay,
bizarre.
how long is that going to last that you're fine?
Right.
Not long. So this is about right. We're seeing, this is about right. This is about 3 to 4, between 2 and 4 years later, people are losing their
Hmm.
minds. Yeah, exactly. Because nobody had time to adjust. They
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I am not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't pretend to be. But from my own experience of being traumatized and seeing what trauma did to me, and I was traumatized during the pandemic too, but I fared better than most people. I was writing like crazy. I wrote like 24 stories in 2 years. Like, I mean, that's a
Oh,
lot
wow.
for me, and a novel, and I was sending out my chapbooks, and I wrote a screenplay, and I mean, I was like on fire. But to get back to talking about what sparked the writing for me when I was younger and my mom was sick and that house was a nightmare, writing was the only place I could go where I was safe.
Hmm.
So
For
when the
processing.
pandemic hit, I went, oh, my body went, oh, we know what this is. Get
Yeah.
busy, and the ideas just kept coming. I mean, it was ridiculous. I was writing sometimes 3, 4 stories at a time at the same time, which I never do. Like, and it was because that was my body's trauma response. It remembered from when I was a child watching my mom because she was dying for 8 years. So it was a trauma scene for a good 8 years, and then she died,
Yeah.
and then it was more trauma after that. So my body remembered, and it went, we know how
Yeah.
to cope with this. And many of my friends did not cope as well. because they did
Hmm.
not have that level of trauma. So their bodies did not know what to do with it or how to process it. And now we're seeing this rise of, just stuff everywhere, craziness,
Hmm.
because, it's unprocessed. And I think
Yeah,
we all need to give ourselves a little grace and give ourselves and each other a little empathy. And it's easier said than done when you're freaking out. I get it.
true.
Ask my husband. He'll tell you. It's like,
Yeah.
um, but it was an escape for me. And so I wrote all these stories about, because I was always wanted to be a marine biologist. So I wrote all these stories about sharks and underwater volcanoes. And I had this whole series called The Underwater University that I wrote when I was in sixth grade. And
Mm,
I just was writing like the whole time. And I won some award in high school.
that
Don't
makes
ask
such
me
an
what it was.
impact, doesn't it,
It
though? It
really
makes an
does.
impact. Even if you don't remember what it's called, it's like those
Yeah.
acknowledgments,
Yes.
the
And the
steps in the
funny
process.
thing was that I was interviewed by the newspaper. So that was an even bigger deal.
Hmm.
I was interviewed by the Litchfield County Times. Um, and they asked me why I like to write. And I said, I was 16, that I remember. And I said, if I wanted to go spend an hour with Indiana Jones, I could.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't have to be here. And of course, nobody back then looked at that and said, holy crap, she's dissociative. We may need to get some help because that was not a thing back then. But I thought that was really funny now because I just found it a while ago because I was
Oh
cleaning out
yeah,
some stuff and I was like, oh my God. Um,
they
so
just
yeah,
thought you
that was
loved
interesting.
Harrison Ford. They were like,
Well,
"Oh,
I
she has a
do.
crush."
Oh, yeah. He was definitely my high school crush. Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, Han Solo, like all that. Yeah,
Hmm.
he was
Hmm.
my guy. And I also had a big crush on Roy Scheider too.
Oh, with Jaws, yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yes, but Roy Scheider, I think that honestly was probably a daddy thing
Yeah.
because he drank beer and he smoked, and so did my dad.
And he
So
needed a bigger boat.
and he needed a bigger boat. And that was my dad's favorite line in the movie. Like he just loved that. He would crack up every time it was on. He's like, and I would be like, well, that would be him. And my dad did, we lived on a lake, so he
Oh
boated.
yeah.
And my dad was in the Navy. Yeah. So,
Oh wow.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, he was in the Cuban Missile Crisis, actually, Bay of Pigs.
Wow.
So he
Oh.
told me a lot of stories about that. He was on the USS Independence, for anybody out there who wants to know. And then in high school, when I was 16, my first paid job, was I was a reporter for my town newspaper, the New Milford Times, and I was a school reporter. So
Mhm.
I guess looking back at my life, it's always been about writing. And then after college, the first time, which I was an obituary writer for Gannett Suburban Newspapers, which is USA Today, basically. They owned at the time USA Today. I don't know if they
Mm.
still do. I'm going back to I'm 33 years ago, 30 years ago, 35 years ago. Um, and yeah, I guess I've been kind of writing ever since. I mean, I've just always been writing. I wouldn't know how to not write. I just
Yeah.
need to be more serious about committing every day to doing stuff. Because I tend to, like I said, oh, I'm going to write 24 stories and that'll go on for like 2 years. And then I will not really write very much for a while.
Creative reservoir, it fills up and then you let it go and you have to rebuild it.
And I have more ideas than I commit to writing. And it used to be I'd get an idea and my life would stop and I would just write the whole thing right there. The problem is
Hmm.
now I have so many ideas I can't do that. So what because I'm working or well, I'm laid off right now. I got laid off last May after a job of 25 years.
Oh
So
wow.
I decided to just take some time off and hang out because I have severance. So I am looking for a full-time job. I'm going to start building my editing business on the side. And this
Nice.
week I am going back to volunteer at the Maritime Aquarium at Norwalk, where I was a volunteer for many years. Back in the early 2000s, it was my favorite thing to do was volunteer at the aquarium. Um, being a gallery guide, basically a docent,
Yeah.
talking about the fish and the animals and letting the kids pet the rays and I have some really fun
Yeah.
stories about that. Yeah, I love the aquarium. It's fun. I'm excited. I can't wait to go back. I was ecstatic when they emailed me. I was like, yes, I'm coming. I was like, so, and eventually I'll have to get a job, but then I can just move the aquarium hours to the weekend. For now, I'm going to go down during the week, but
We should let people know where to find like the site for the journal as well as where they can find your work, some of those kind of things.
yes, absolutely. So this is 34 Orchard. This is a paper copy that I printed
Lovely.
out. 34 Orchard is just a PDF you can download online. But if you wanted to print it out and bind it, it is laid out so that it opens up like a regular like book. So if you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, you could do that. Um, that website is 34 Orchard, the number 34 orchard.com. So you can
Nice.
find that there. And then my website is Kristi Petersen Schoonover.com. And I'm
Mm.
going to ask for grace because that website is old. I've had it since 2009. It is a mess and it needs a lot of cleanup. And I have not had a second, but I need to just overhaul it. I am also a regular on the Dark Discussions horror movie podcast. Um,
Nice. Very
which,
nice.
yes, thank you. I've been with them since 20, I started with them in 2012, kind of on and off, but I've been with them since 2012, in chunks, and then I would take a couple years off and then come back or whatever. But I'm on there right now, for a while. Um, so that's Dark Discussions podcast. You can just Google that. And I don't know. I guess 34 Orchard, my website. Yeah, that's it. Really. I mean, you can find me
Cool.
on Facebook. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm just, is there anything you want to ask me or else? I feel like I
Yeah.
just hijacked everything and just talked,
No,
but
no, you are fine. I was gonna ask about creative process as you've been working and as you're going from story to story. Are there any particular creative kind of rituals or things that kind of spark your inspiration?
yes, when I get an idea for a story, I tend to um I tend to immerse myself in whatever world I'm going to be in. I am
Mm-hmm.
working right now. I'll give you an example. I am working right now on a short story about New Year's Eve 1999. I have,
It's
which
an
I remember,
interesting New Year's. Yes, me too.
yes. And I have immersed myself in rewatching ABC 2000, which is what aired that night. You can find that on YouTube.
Hmm.
And watching and listening to Peter Jennings talk about the horrors of what could possibly happen with computers. And he's on the phone in a special millennial phone call with Steve Case, chairman of AOL Online, which was at the time called America Online. Like they didn't call it AOL. Like it's just so
Oh
wild
yes.
to see all that. And then and uh and then it involves dinosaurs. So I'm watching a lot of dinosaur documentaries. So when
Oh,
I'm
nice.
writing a short story, I will immerse myself in that world. And I remember where I was on New Year's Eve of 1999. I also remember where I was on New Year's Day of 2000 and 2001, that area of my life. So I went down the basement and I pulled out all my pictures of all those parties and things I went to. And I looked at what people were wearing and I mean, I remember what I was wearing. That's scary, but whatever, what kinds of foods we ate, what we were doing, I mean, there's like food that we ate that like is not here anymore.
Ah.
Like Olean potato chips. Remember those? There were bags of the potato chips with the Olean in them on the counter.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, those are gone. You can't find those anymore. Like they took them off the market years and years ago. you know. There was like cigarette, oh my god, everybody smoked inside. Like I was a smoker, like I smoked a
Oh
pack a
yeah.
day. So there's like, you see all these people's cigarettes in this living, like everybody's just smoking, there's ashtrays everywhere. It's like, it's crazy. So to see,
Hmm.
and then to stop and realize that that was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago. Like it really wasn't that long ago. It wasn't. And the world was
Mm-mm.
totally different. Um, so I guess with my creative process, I will get the idea. It will come from usually something cool I learn about um on the internet, like Facebook. I'll be surfing on, scrolling on Facebook, and I'll see some interesting thing about a breed of crab, or who knows, whatever,
Oh
and I'll
yeah. Hmm.
screenshot it and save it. Somebody will say something to me, and I will think it's funny or dark and write it down and put the date and write a little. Sometimes I get an idea right away, sometimes I don't. um like the short story Hot Times at the Dinosaur Bidet, which is what the name of this story is. It's a
It's a
crazy
great title.
title. Where did it come from? Thank you. My husband was joking around because we were watching a dinosaur documentary, and the dinosaur burned to death in front of us in this documentary, and I got sad, and I went, oh my god, this is so sad. And he was like, Hot Times at the Dinosaur Buffet. And suddenly I was like, oh my god, Hot Times at the Dinosaur Bidet, that's like really gross, but it's kind of interesting. I could maybe do something with that. And then
Hmm.
this opportunity of a story came up, and I was like, oh, well, if I took this and if I did this, then oh, that would be interesting. And then I'll set the dinosaurs on fire, right? So it's like Hot Times
Oh
at the
yeah.
so, and then I immerse myself in that world. Um, Wrecking Malcolm was one of my favorite short stories. I loved writing that story, because as a writer, I have personal favorites because, again, the whole escapist, I spent time with Indiana Jones. I go there. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like I'm just not here when I'm writing. So Wrecking Malcolm was about inspired by a shipwreck graveyard in East Providence that I had visited. And oh my God, I spent all my time at this shipwreck graveyard because I have friends out there. So I would call and be like, yeah, can I just come out there? And I would just go out there and hang out. I looked at all the research. Um, I'd gone to a lecture about it. That's what it was. Because I'm a member of the archaeology club at our community college here, Norwalk Community College. Because I was working toward a certificate in archaeology, which I never finished. But anyway, who cares? The point is, I'm still in the archaeology club. I still go to their lectures. So they had lecture, and it was this guy, and he's lecturing about all these shipwrecks in East Providence off of India Point, and I was like, and he's showing these pictures, and I'm going, oh my god, I know where that is. And my friend Michelle was like,
Hmm.
what do you mean? I'm like, that is around the corner from my friend's house. I know exactly where that is. And she's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no. And he was showing pictures of how you could see it in low tide. So I emailed my friend, and I'm
Wow.
like, it's right around the corner from you, blah blah blah. So when I went to visit, he was like, okay, I got a surprise, get in the car, it's freezing cold. I'm like, what do you mean you have a surprise? He's like, I have a surprise, get in the car. I'm like, okay. So I get in the car. He goes, bundle up. I'm like, okay. So I bundle up. I get in the car. We drive one block. And I go, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, I knew it was near you. And he's like, yep, it's right here. I was like, oh
Oh,
my God. It was like the best day. And then I got to meet the guy, because the guy who was the lecture guy, I met him at the lecture, but then he would give boat tours. So that when I was working on that story, I went on a boat tour, and he took me on a boat
nice.
tour and showed me all the things. And I was floating over the wrecks. Like, it was crazy. And then I did all this research about shipwrecks in general. And I watched all these documentaries about shipwrecks. And now, these wrecks in particular, they were not shipwrecks where people died. Okay. These were not like
Hmm.
things that washed up. This is a shipwreck graveyard where ships were simply ditched. They were left to rot. They were no longer useful. They were just left there to, decompose. Um, but that said, for my story, I wanted to change that up because it was a fictional place with, there's all these shipwrecks because it's a cursed island, the usual. And so I was like, okay, so I looked at all these different shipwrecks and what caused them. And I'm a disaster freak anyway. So
Mhm.
I was pretty well, I'm into a lot of I'm into disasters. And when people ask me, why are you so into disasters? I'm like, it's probably because my life was a disaster and I relate. Um, but yeah, so wrecking Malcolm was really fun. So that's my process. My process is very much get an idea, go for it, and then if I can, just stay in that place, just immerse
Mhm.
myself in that world. And so when I'm writing, every story is an experience. It's
Wow.
not just a
Yeah.
story I'm writing. And trust me, there are stories that I quote just right, and they're not very good. They're not very good. Like they're just not. They're not. I look at them and I go, God, I wish I didn't. Oh my God. And then I sent that out and somebody published it. Oh God, it's awful because the passion isn't in it. Because I was just
Hmm.
writing it to do a job and I wasn't actually living it. So part of what I'm going to try to do to be more true to myself is to just make sure I'm only writing things I'm passionate about. I'm not doing that anymore. Like I'm just no. If it doesn't turn me on, I'm just not going to do it. It's not worth it. Because then I'm just pushing something out there and getting paid for it, and that's nice, but then I don't like it, and then I'm not comfortable. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah. As you said, life is short.
Yeah. I hate
Yeah.
when I read my own stories that I read and went, oh, I hate that.
We've
What
all
I
been
love
there.
is when I go, oh my God, I love this story, my own story so much that I sit there and reread it and I go, God, I love this. And again,
Hmm.
not because, oh God, it's so good and I'm great. No, it's because I was living it.
Hmm.
So it's a whole
Hmm.
bunch of memories attached to that too. When I was doing the shipwreck story, I was also hanging out with my friends a lot in Rhode Island. We were going out, we were drinking wine. I would go and have writing weekends with my friend Heather. In the summer, we would go to the beach. Like it's a whole, like there were certain songs oh yeah, that reminds me of when I was writing Wrecking Malcolm. Like
Hmm.
it's memories. It's not for me, it's not just a story. So those ones that I'm not that passionate about that I just write, I kind of read them and they're like dead.
Hmm.
Like I don't have
Hmm.
any
I
memories
get that.
connected to them. It's just something that I did. Like
Yeah.
so um you know and I mean that's okay. I'm not criticizing anybody who does that. That's cool. I wish I could do it because I probably would write a lot faster. Like I know people that are just turning out stuff right and left, and that's not me. And it's easy for me to be like, why am I not like that? Well, you're not like that because when you're writing, you're actually living stuff. And that's a much slower process. It's, and it's okay. It's everybody's
True.
different. You don't have to be like everybody. Everybody can.
It is
And
your
every once in a
process.
while, I do dump something out and it comes out in 2 hours and it's great. Or at least I can work with it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I remember one story I wrote in one day, and I remember it was December 17th, and I was cleaning the house in between writing it. And I was having so much fun because it was the week before Christmas. So I was like writing the story, and then I would take a break and wrap a few presents. And there was Christmas music playing, and Charles and Nathan were watching was it Christmas Vacation? They were watching Christmas Vacation and then they were watching
Oh,
Elf in the
hmm.
other room. And I was just like, I remember that story. Like I associate it. And then there was one story I wrote on my birthday. Um, I don't remember which year it was, and it was a flash piece, and I wrote it in one day, but I also had to go to the movies to see a movie that we were reviewing for Dark Discussions, and I'd taken my birthday off from work. And I remember I got
Oh.
up, I started writing the story. I was really excited, and then I like went to the movies because I went to a morning movie and I ate popcorn for breakfast. And then I came home and I wrote the story some more. And then my husband came home and he brought me cake and flowers, and then I was eating my cake while I was writing the story. And so It Can't Rain All the Time. That was the name of the short story. It Can't Rain All the Time. And
Nice.
it was published as an audio presentation. Um but my God, I love that story. And again, not because I think it's fantastic, but it's because every time I look back at that story or I reread it, I have
Hmm.
all the wonderful memories of that one birthday. I was like, that
Uh,
was a great day. Like it just takes me right back to how much fun that day was.
it's been a delight talking with you, and glad to have you back anytime. And I'm looking forward to reading more.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really love this opportunity.